told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away, as you fade away.
Yeah, I'm about to fade away, cause every time I wake up I feel like it's Monday. Something's going wrong with all the chemicals up in my brain. All of a sudden I don't look at anything the same way. Gotta build up of my thoughts sitting in an ashtray. I'm sorry that I'm so inconvenient, okay? Just let me be me and I'll stay out of your way. I can see the way you look at me, I'm such a disgrace. I never really asked to be brought into this place. You wanna love me? Well then baby I have a taste. All the highs and the lows, no you'll never be the same. I don't really wanna hurt you but I can't control the pain. If you're sticking by my side maybe we could be okay. Okay, maybe you could be the change I need today. I promise that I've never felt this way. I really hope that you will choose to stay through all the pain.
I know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away, as you fade away, as you fade away, as you fade away.
Good afternoon everyone, welcome aboard Sea Urchin. I finally managed to find a short window for me to come out and do a little bit more, hopefully to help people catch a few more fish when they come on the boat. So today was a typical kind of a Whitby weather day. It was not great in the morning, a short window in the afternoon, and then closing in again later on this afternoon. So unfortunately, the lads that I had booked on today have cancelled their trip because the conditions are not really that good for fishing. You can even see now, you know, there's a little bit of movement, we're swinging around. However, I thought the wind's easing down. Literally, I'm doing this talking to you now and the wind is coming down as we speak, so hopefully it'll smooth off a bit and allow me to do a little bit of fishing for you, and hopefully, unlike the last one, maybe catch a few. So today, a little bit of an explanation as to why I'm here. You can probably see behind me, land isn't too far away. At the time of year that we're at now, the water is just starting to clear out inside. By that I mean close into shore. Through the winter months it's really murky and there are very few fish on the wrecks, or those that are, you either drift too fast, they can't see the bait. Basically it's not worth fishing them. So at the early part of the year we tend to run off and fish the distant wrecks first because the water clears out there before it does inside. So now we are mid-May, well about 3/4 of the way through May to be fair. And yeah, we've just this last week or so we've started to notice that there's signs of life inside, certainly more than there were a couple of weeks ago. I've taken the opportunity this afternoon then to come out. I'm not going to be here long, maybe an hour, 2 hours tops, to do a few drops and do some wreck fishing. At the moment the mackerel aren't here, so my bait for the day is going to be just squid. I've bought a bag of squid out of my freezer which is now defrosted and ready to go. Last time I was here I showed you my hire gear. Today I'm just, because I haven't used it for quite a while, I'm going to use my own gear today. You'll see though that there's not really a great deal of difference between what I use and my hire tackle, apart from the choice of rod. So my rod is, this is a Century Excalibur braid. It's a 2040 class rod. It's absolutely beautiful. Yes, it's pricey, I get that, but I only have the one and I like to use a nice rod, so I can highly recommend the Century. I'm not sponsored by anybody, I just love this rod. And on the reel I have a Daiwa Saltiga. Again, probably in the upper echelons money wise, but man, it is such a smooth reel. Loaded with exactly the same braid that's on my higher reels, the £60. I have it in the multicoloured, so that you can, it's in 5 metre sections, so it changes colour every 5 metres, which is quite useful for when you're dropping down. You know roughly, if you count whereabouts you are. And then attached to it I've got all the stuff that I've already spoken about before. There is one of my bait traces, which is just, on this occasion, an orange muppet with a pennel arrangement on the hooks. And today it's a 4.7 metre tide, so we are moving a little bit. I've just stopped the boat and checked it, and we drifting currently, because we've got wind and tide together, we're drifting at around a knot, which isn't too bad, it's okay. But I am going to use 16 ounces, so a pound lead, so that I can control the gear through the wreck. That's pretty much it as far as an introduction goes. You'll notice that it's pretty quiet. I don't have the engines running. However, when I start fishing, which will be in about 5 minutes when I run back up to the wreck, and the engines, I've got to keep them running, because I'll be going round, setting the drift at the top of the wreck and then drifting over it, hopefully getting a bite or two, and then going, basically just going round and round in circles. That's all I'm going to do for a couple of hours. We'll see how we go. If I catch straight away, then I'm not going to be here long. I'll just go through some of the techniques for watching for the bites, feeling your way through, and hopefully playing the fish, because I see lots and lots of mistakes that people make, and it's not through any fault of their own particularly. If you don't know, you don't know. So all I want to do is just hopefully give people a few tips that might just land them a few better fish. We had some nice fish aboard yesterday. Nothing absolutely huge, but we had some decent fish, and I think codling, we had codling up to sort of £7, I think, and now the Ling are on the way back. The Ling disappear in the winter, but they're on the way back, so we've got Ling. I'm hopeful that we'll find a few here. I am about 4 miles from the pier ends at Whitby, so not too far away. We'll see how we go. I just wanted to give a quick rundown on the tidal range at Whitby, because for people who are booking trips, it's actually quite important, I think, to try and book the best possible tide that you can. So we can't control the weather. We lose lots of days fishing every year due to bad weather, today being one of them. But the only thing that you can do is pick your tide. The tidal range at Whitby runs roughly from a 4 metre tide to a 6 metre tide. 4 being a small tide, and in absolute basic terms, a small tide means you will drift slower, and a big tide means you will drift quicker. Today we've got a nice wrecking tide, which is we've got a 4.7 metre tide today, which is absolutely ideal. You don't want to be sitting still, but you don't want to be flying through the wreck. In order to fish the wrecks all day, you want ideally really a 4.7 and below, and that most days, unless the wind picks up and you go rocketing through the wrecks when the wind and tide are together, you'll be able to fish the wrecks all day. When we get above 5 metres, the tide goes above 5 metres, really we're going to be spending more of the day drifting the reefs and rough ground, of which there are lots around Whitby, so we'll be spending most of the day doing that. And then as the tide eases and goes from high water to low water, in between you have what's called slack water. And at slack water, the tide literally, it stops and turns and goes in the opposite direction. So on the really big tides, that's when we normally go and jump onto a wreck. So for booking a trip, depending on what you want to do, just consider the tides. When you look on my availability, on it are all the tide heights right the way through the year. So, you can have a look. Oh, look, the space is there with a, I want to go wrecking. Oh, look at that, 4.7, got spaces. And that's how we do it. So, yeah, that's just a brief explanation of the tidal range at Whitby. As I said before, the engines are going to be running now. But I've just stopped us over the wreck. and I'm going to have a first drop. Say whole squid. I'll do a close-up on this so you can see how we hook them onto the pennel. So a little bit of a close-up as to how we mount the bait. So these are the pennel hooks. We've done this before, but I thought instead of tagging links and all the rest of it, I'll make my life easy. So one squid, one bait trace. So we slide up the muppet out of the way, and there's the two hooks. So we put the larger of the hooks in first, and he goes into the middle of the squid there and stays in the squid. You don't poke it through. Twist, poke it out of the bottom, hook it through the eyes, and you can see nice and juicy. And then the top hook, we measure it against the top of the squid and then wrap it round the hook twice. That locks the hook in place, and then hook it. All that's left to do then is simply slide your muppet down into position, and it's all ready to go. Just a whole squid. Wipe the old hands. Right, let's give it a go. Still might be moving a little bit quickly. Say we're in a weather window gap. I can see some rain already on land. Whether that's going to come out this way, I don't know. I'm certainly not fishing in the rain. I'm a fair weather angler. Okay, we're steadily going down. There, we're down on the bottom. So into gear. I just lift. No way. I am not exaggerating. I've got one. Literally, it took it on the drop as soon as I've got to the bottom. Well, that's what we want. There's obviously a few fish down there. So, I did say I wanted to talk to you about, playing the fish. As you can see, Robson Green, I certainly aren't. What I'm doing is I have the rod tucked under my armpit, and I am just literally slow and steady. Slow and steady wins the race. It's not particularly spectacular, but it's actually very effective. I see lots of anglers who, quite rightly so, they get really excited when they get the first bite, and they'll strike wildly like Zorro, and then they start winding really fast and writhing, and if the fish are lightly hooked, you will just literally pull the hooks out. So this is all you need to do. Like I say, it doesn't look particularly glamorous, but it's effective. I don't think it's an enormous fish, but let's say there's obviously a few down there because this one's actually foul hooked. This little codling, he's obviously swiped at it as it's gone past him, but he's only lightly hooked, so no damage done, and he can go back and become a 10-pounder of the future. That fish, believe it or not, was actually size. 35 centimetres is the size for codling. I think that's way too small personally. I very rarely take fish anyway. I'll take an odd one for us to eat at home, but unless they're badly hooked and they won't survive, then everything that I get today I'm going to put back. Right, so that was quite a successful first drop. I'm going to go and check on the sounder where we are, see if we've got over the wreck. I never even got to the wreck then. Yeah, I'll go and have a look, put on another squid, run back round, and this is exactly how a regular day's fishing goes. We drift over the wreck, I get everybody to wind up, and we go round and round. So you've got to get used to winding up in, a reasonable depth of water. we're fishing in 55 metres here, which is, I mean, the North Sea's not a deep sea, not by any stretch, but yeah, you're fishing normally at Whitby in 50 to 70 metres maximum. So here's 55. Right, I'm just going to go and run the boat back around and then we'll have another drop. I think, really luckily, there is, you can't see it in the camera shot I don't think, but there is a really nasty squall just going down the coast towards, it's just going across Robin Hood's Bay now. I think we've dodged it, which is good. So away we go again. One of the other reasons that I actually like to use a 16 ounces is, so really, leads wise, talking of leads, you only really want, for wrecking, 12s or a pound. That's all you'll ever really need. Okay, we're down. So, set the gear. I'm not fishing in gear, as I keep talking about. All I'm doing, I'm going to lift the rod up higher than I normally do, so hopefully it'll show in the shot, and then you can maybe see a bite or two. All I'm doing now is I am literally just lifting the gear to keep in touch with it, so it's tapping the bottom. If I feel the wreck either grating on the line or I feel the gear knocking on some of the metalwork, then I will do a real fast lift. Which usually sort of gets you out of trouble. Definitely on the wreck now because I've not had to pay any line out at all. I can literally lift it up and drop it on. The thing with fishing the wrecks though, oh there we go, we've got a bite now, something's showing a bit of interest. I think it's only a small fish, maybe a pouting or a whiting, just probably nicking the head off the squid. A little bit more vigorous. Oh, yeah, there we go, look. And that's it. It's really as... That's all we need to do. This, I think this is another small codling. What you tend to find though on the wrecks, and something that you really do have to concentrate on doing, is when you get... So the ling are back now. We're starting to get ling back on the wrecks. When the bites tend to be, I'm generalising, but the bites from ling tend to be quite aggressive, and you might just get a couple of real heavy thumps, and you know the fish will be on. But the ling, if you're in one of the chewy wrecks that's got bits and pieces on it, they will literally try and dart back into the wreck, so you do have to hit and hold. That's why people sometimes underestimate how arduous wrecking can be. Trying to hold them fish out. I've seen some, you know, you even a moderate sized ling of sort of 10 pounds, they do pull back. So you've got to be in pretty good condition. Yeah, another little codling, look. He's not badly hooked either, so we'll be able to send him back on his way in a minute. Lovely clean fish. See the squid hanging out of his mouth there? Right, one thing to always have to hand. I've got mine here. decent set of forceps. I prefer the bendy nosed ones. As simple as that. There we go. We'll get him back. There he goes. The one really good thing about cod ling rather, is they're pretty hardy fish. Unlike the ling, when you get ling up, they quite often cough the swim bladder out. Cod nearly always go back, unless they're deep hooked, but usually when you're wrecking you don't catch deep hooked fish because you'll get the bite and strike, so usually it's in the mouth. But yeah, they're real hardy fish, so got the seagulls gathering, ready to eat any squid that I've finished with. Yeah, cheers mate, thank you very much. Okay, go around for another go, see if we can get something a little bit bigger. Right, we'll have another drop. The tide is just starting to ease a little bit now. Slack water's in about an hour from now, but definitely still need the pound of lead to fish well. Away we go. While the reel is spinning away here and going down to the lead's going down to the bottom, I don't just let it go into free fall. I can feel the braid, it's running over my thumb. The reason that I do that is because I've got a 16 ounce lead on it, it's going down pretty fast. There we go, it's down to the bottom, but because I've got my thumb on it, the spool stops as soon as the lead gets to the bottom. If you don't have your thumb on, if you just let it go careering down and crash into the bottom, you'll get what we call an overrun on the reel. The spool will just keep spinning and the braid will end up all tangled up. I see that happen quite regularly with people who've only just, who are just coming into it. Little nibble from something then. And again, I think something's after it. It was a bit of a tricky one that, because I can feel that I'm in wreck. And the fish normally I wouldn't move it because the fish was giving me a bite, but it was a case of either hook the wreck. This is a real chewy bit of the wreck. Oh dear, I don't think this is going to end well. I've just felt, oh no, we've got a fish. But it's done. It's kind of done what I was saying before. It was in a real chewy bit of the wreck. You can sometimes let it go slack, sometimes it'll come out. I can feel the fish pulling away. It's still on, but whether I'm going to get it out is anybody's guess. I don't think so. I think what I'm going to have to do is get the breaker out and see if I can't pull it through. Unlikely, but you never know. No, that's tightened up and broken off. That's a shame. Really is a shame. It was a decent bite that. But as I keep banging on, that's wreck fishing for you. Okay, so the inevitable has happened. I've got stuck in the wreck, unfortunately losing a fish. But something that I wanted to talk to you about is preparation. fairly regular, there'll be somebody on board. Normally we get a complete contrast. There'll be somebody on board who's super organised, and there'll be somebody on board who literally ties one rig at a time. My advice would be, come prepared. So when you're drifting over wrecks, we drift over, go back round, drift over, go back round. What you don't want to be doing is like I've just done then. So I've broken off in the wreck. By the time I've got wound up and everything, we will be through the wreck, and the skipper would then be shouting, wind up everybody, ready to go back to the top of the wreck and set the drift off again. So the person who's organised, while they're going back up to start the drift again, will simply go in the pocket like me, get out the snap swivel, tie a quick figure of 8 loop, like so. I'm not timing this, but it doesn't take long. So I've got my swivel on. I then dip into my bag of tricks and get out another already tied bait trace. Take him out. Hook it on. Loop to loop my lead. That's me. Done. Ready to drop back down. Well, as soon as I've put some bait on. So, you know, that took less than a minute. In contrast to somebody who isn't organised, who will then start to tie up another rig, and through the course of the day, if you get stuck 5 or 6 times, so out you would miss the next drift. So you're going to miss 5 or 6, 7, 8 drifts sometimes by not being organised. So top tip, when you come in, either use my gear, because when you break off we'll just re-tackle you straight away, so you won't miss any drifts at all. Or if you're coming to use your own gear, just get a load already tied up. It's the easiest thing in the world to do. Don't waste your, coming sea fishing's expensive. Don't waste your day tying rigs. You want to be hauling the fish. Right. Away we go. Really nice afternoon now. Those squally showers seem to have disappeared for now. They're coming back later on this evening, so I'll be well out of the way by then. Okay, so we're down. Literally with each passing drift that I'm doing, I think this is number 1, 2, 3, this is the 5th drift that I've done, and it's getting progressively easier to control the gear because the tide is starting to ease, and it's going to keep easing away for the next, well, 30 minutes until we get to slack water, and then we'll see what happens. With wreck fishing, what quite often happens, that's a good fish. Yeah, so we're going to try and keep this one out the wreck. You can see he's pulling quite a bit. But we've got him. Yeah, so as I was saying, so on slack water, which is when that's in between high water and low water, so the tide's not moving in either direction. So the only thing that will actually move the boat is the wind. So on a day with light wind, you can literally sit on top of the wreck and move nowhere. However, today we've got a gentle breeze, so even at slack water we will still move, but there just won't be the tide. And what quite often happens on the wrecks, especially for the Ling, is we'll see fairly often a decent sized Ling on slack water. That's what they're noted for. Those ones that live in the wreck all the time when the tide's flooding, they poke their heads out when it's slack and come out for dinner. I mean, we're not quite at slack water yet, but yeah, it's definitely easing. This may well be a small Ling. Oh no, it's not. Look at that. Well, I don't know whether I've got that on my GoPro that's at the side of me, but I've got what they call, I'll just let a bit of line off, see if they're both going to stay on, but I have got double bubble. Look at that, like peas in a pod. And they're both, yeah. You quite often get this with Hawkeyes, for example. You don't normally get two jump on the same bait trace, so yeah, that's quite interesting. Right, let's see if we can get these boys back. Be some nice fish and chips there for somebody. Like I say, we're not taking fish today, that's not what this is about. There goes number one, and then he's slightly bigger mate here. I think I might need the pliers for this one. You can have the squid, me old mate. You can have the squid for your lunch. Yeah, not enormous, but a lovely clean little codling. Yeah, nice. Well, that was a successful drift. Yeah, nice. We'll have another run round, I think we'll be over it now. Right, I'm enjoying this. Let's have another go. I'm happy to keep catching cod all afternoon. At least I know they go back well. Chances are if I get a Ling, it'll cough its swim bladder up and they don't go back very well. Even if you bring them up slowly. Yeah, this is I think it's drift number 6. Yeah, this is drift number 6, and the tide has gone from my first drift speed was 1.3 knots, and as the tide has gradually started to ease down, we're now drifting at 0.6, and the majority of that is the wind, to be honest, because we've got wind and tide together. The tide's flooding at the moment. Just coming onto the wreck, I can feel it. Something just had a nibble then. And again, but it's in that chewy piece of wreck as well, like it was last time when I lost the fish. One or two things is going to happen any second. I'm either going to get a fish or I'm going to get stuck in the wreck, I think. The one thing you'll notice that isn't happening, which is something that I see anglers doing far too often, I've just done it then, but I do it to reset the gear. I try and keep the bait as still as I can for as long as I can to give the fish chance to come and find it. And I only move it when either the boat's moved so it forces me to, like now, or I feel the wreck. But I see some people, not exaggerating, just doing this. Oh, that's... You don't need to keep lifting it up and down and up and down, unless, not for this style anyway. If you were fishing with what they call a perk, which is like a big stainless steel weight with a hook on the bottom, that's an attractor for the cod. Oh, something's having a bite. Yeah, I think we could be in. Yeah. Yeah, that's... Yeah, using perks are something that they used to use a lot, sort of like in the 90s and things. My father-in-law tells me that they used to use the chrome pram frames from children's prams. They used to use the pram frames and cut them into sections, squeeze the ends and fill them with lead drill holes. It basically make their own perks. Nowadays, some of the perks, they cost 5, 6, 7 quid each, and when you're fishing in the wrecks you're going to lose them, and it's just really expensive. I think that's personally why I just don't use them. I use what I've shown you, which is a muppet and 2 hooks. I want to leave the least amount of stuff in a wreck if I get stuck. Well, we must be about halfway up now, I think. Not doing a great deal. Don't know whether it's going to be a Mr. Cod or Mr. Ling. It's either or. Normally with a Ling, when you first get the Ling, they really bang their heads and try and get in the wreck, and then once you get them up, they kind of quit. Now, it's another codling. Not a bad sized codling. He's okay. They're very much sort of peas in a pod, sort of like general average size, only lightly hooked. Nice clean fish. We'll put him back to fight another day. Really enjoying myself today, it's nice. Right, this time I've gone for I've put a slightly bigger squid on. I'm hopeful that the one thing that people may take from this is, you'll see, I'm not chopping and changing. I honestly don't believe there are wonder rigs, or I think the colours half the time are pretty much immaterial on the Muppets. I think it's far more important to concentrate on how you're presenting it and fishing well. If you fish well and you're presented and you're going through a wreck with something they want to eat, and at Whitby it's squid really, or when they're in mackerel, fresh mackerel, you can't beat fresh mackerel, you will get bites, absolutely guaranteed. I see it day in, day out with my regular anglers who come. You know, I have something to judge it off, because I know that if there's fish there, they're going to get bites. I think it's quite important to try and keep an even amount of pressure in the tip. It really does help you feel for the bites. That's why you can see I'm trying hard to leave. Oh, there's something having a nibble now. I'm just going to leave it a little bit longer and see if it'll, whatever it is, will properly take it. It's trying. That was a bit of a more of a jab. I thought that would have taken that. Now it's got it. Whatever it is, it's probably another one of the standard size codling that I've been catching. It doesn't seem like there's going to be anything of any size to catch today. Never mind. So it's been nice to get a few bites. There's only been, I don't know what number drift this is now, I've kind of lost count. Probably upwards of about, and getting towards 10 I think. But since I started this afternoon, I've only been going for like about an hour and a half I think. There's only been one drift that I didn't get a bite, and one drift that I had a fish got stuck in the wreck. So at the moment I've lost one set of gear, which that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. But that's because, as I keep explaining to people on board every day, it's about feeling your way through the wreck. Yeah, it's about feeling your way through. Yeah, very peas in a pod today. I mean, that's, I don't know, £3 or so. Very sort of standard size. But, you know, obviously these are takeable fish for the table, they really are. I'm not taking them today, but yeah. They're very deceptive. The size of the fillet that you actually get, when you take the fillets off on board, you think, oh, it's only small. Actually, when you get them home, if you take the fillets off that fish, put them onto a plate, they'll be hanging off the edges. Yeah. Well, time to go back, Mr. Codling. Thank you very much, mate. And away. Yeah. It doesn't look like, we'll never say never. I'm going to have a couple more drifts and then I'm going in, because the tide will be slack. We'll just give it a chance to run down to literally slack water, and if I've not managed to get anything any bigger, do you know what, I don't mind. I've come out and had a lovely afternoon, a few bites. That wind's going to start to lift though soon, so I don't want to be too long before I go back in. And it looks like that's going to be it fishing wise. I don't think I'm going to get anybody out fishing now until probably after the weekend. It's one of those. We've suffered a bit with that just recently. We've been able to go to sea on the big tides when you can't really spend a lot of time on the wrecks, and then as soon as we get down to the small tides, yeah, the weather turns rubbish, so you end up missing it. But never mind, we're always complaining as anglers. Right, get a fresh squid on and run back round. Okay, so this is going to be my last drift. Definitely going to be my last. I can feel the wind strengthening, the temperature's dropping. The rubbish weather, as I explained right at the start, we're in a weather window and the rubbish weather is on its way back, so I'm not going to get caught out in it, but I want to get back in. So, let's see what she does. Last drop. It's interesting, say slack water, sometimes you can get a really big fish, and then other times it's completely dead and you would think there was no fish on the wreck, and that some people struggle to sort of get that concept mentally, that we go to a wreck at slack water and it's like, oh, there's nothing on here, we need to move. And more often than not the fish are there, but they just might not be feeding. So it's not quite often it'll pay dividends. I've seen it so many times where we've actually waited for the tide just to get going again, and straight away it's like somebody's flicked a switch. The bite's just kicked straight back in. Just looking at the angle of my line, I can see that the flood tide goes down this way, which from Whitby is down towards Scarborough. The ebb tide goes up towards Hartlepool. And the wind is coming from a northerly direction today, like Hartlepool direction. And the ebb tide is now starting to go up that way, and I can see that my line is now running. So the tide has definitely turned. We've passed slack water. And now the drift of the boat will start to change as well. It would have been nice to finish on a fish, but there's still time yet. I'm still in the wreck because the depth changed then when I lifted to reset the lead. When I went to lower it down, it actually didn't hardly go anywhere, so I must be on top of something. I have a sneaking suspicion I'm going to get snagged in a second. Yeah, I think that's gone in it. No, we've got a fish to finish with. Oh, that's brilliant. Right, this is definitely my last one. That's dropped off. So yeah, I'm going to head back in now. Really enjoyed this afternoon. Nice, really enjoyed it. Had plenty of bites while the flood tide was going. It was really nice, you know, bite every drift. Couldn't really ask for more. Could have preferred, you know, it would have been nice to contact something a little bit bigger, but to be honest, I'm just happy getting bites. It's the bites and the you know, and the fight from the fish that I enjoy. It doesn't have to be enormous. So yeah, I'm going to run back in now. Don't need much of a wash down today. I've kept my boat nice and tidy, and then do a bit of editing. So hopefully there's been a few tips in there, and unlike the last video, there's been a few fish. So excellent. Thanks very much if you've taken the time to watch this. If there's anything that you particularly want me to cover, I enjoy making these, so by all means send me a message, or you know, find Sea Urchin on Facebook, and when I get the time and a gap in the window where I don't have bookings, then yeah, I'll come back out and do something else. Thanks for watching.